The content presented on Truly Woke is created for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes. Welcome to Truly Woke.
Imagine walking into an old library. Dust floats through the air. Centuries-old books line the shelves. Most contain stories that historians can read, understand, and preserve. But then, you discover one book unlike any other. Its pages are filled with elegant handwriting, yet not a single sentence can be read. Its illustrations show plants that don't exist, stars arranged in impossible patterns, and strange human figures bathing in green liquid connected by mysterious tubes. For more than 600 years, kings, emperors, monks, cryptographers, linguists, codebreakers, and now even artificial intelligence have tried to answer one question. What does this book say? No one knows. Not because the language has been forgotten, but because it has never been identified. Some believe it's the greatest encrypted message ever created. Others think it's an elaborate medieval hoax. And a few believe it contains knowledge that was never meant to be understood. This is the story of the Voynich Manuscript, a mystery that refuses to surrender its secrets. In 1912, rare book dealer Wilfrid Voynich visited an old Jesuit college near Rome. The library had fallen into difficult times. Many priceless books were being quietly sold to raise money. To Voynich, it looked like an ordinary collection, until one manuscript caught his attention. Its leather cover was plain, no title, no author's name, nothing to suggest it was important. But when he opened it, everything changed. Every page was covered in beautiful flowing symbols. They looked deliberate, consistent, almost musical. This wasn't random scribbling. Someone had spent years writing this. The pages also contained hundreds of colorful illustrations, plants, constellations, strange circular diagrams, tiny human figures. None of it made immediate sense. Voynich realized he wasn't holding an ordinary medieval manuscript. He might have discovered something unique. He purchased the book, without realizing that it would become one of history's greatest unsolved puzzles. At first glance, the writing almost feels familiar. It has repeating patterns, punctuation-like spacing, short words, long words, paragraphs, even what looks like chapter divisions. Everything about it behaves like a real language, except no one has ever found another document written in it. Not one. Experts compared it with Latin, Greek, Hebrew, Arabic, Chinese, ancient Egyptian, Mayan writing. Dozens of medieval alphabets. Nothing matched. Every symbol seemed to belong to a writing system that existed nowhere else. And that raised a terrifying possibility. What if this wasn't just an unknown language? What if it had been invented by a single person? As researchers turned the pages, the mystery deepened. The first section looked like a book on plants. That should have made identification easy. But almost every plant was wrong. Some resembled real herbs. Others combined the leaves of one plant with the roots of another. Flowers appeared to grow from impossible stems. Botanists searched for centuries. Not one could confidently identify every drawing. Were these imaginary plants? Poor illustrations? Or species that disappeared long ago? No one could answer. Then came another section. Circular diagrams filled the pages. Stars, moons, suns, constellations. Some looked similar to medieval astronomy. Others followed patterns unlike any known star chart. If these drawings represented the sky, whose sky were they describing? Then the manuscript became even stranger. Page after page showed dozens of tiny women. Most were unclothed. They stood inside green pools. Some climbed through tube-like structures. Others floated between circular containers. The images almost resemble anatomy, but not quite. Some researchers think these pages describe medicine. Others think they symbolize philosophy. A few believe they represent alchemy. No theory explains everything. Each answer creates even more questions. Why were these women connected by mysterious pipes? Why were stars drawn above them? Why do some appear to emerge from flowers? Nothing fits perfectly. And that's exactly why the manuscript continues to fascinate the world. By the early 20th century, the manuscript had attracted some of the world's greatest codebreakers. If anyone could solve it, surely they could. Military cryptographers, language experts, mathematicians, even specialists who had broken wartime ciphers. They all examined the strange symbols, frequency analysis, pattern recognition, statistical comparisons. The results were astonishing. The text wasn't random. The symbols followed patterns similar to natural languages. Some words appeared more often than others. Certain combinations repeated in logical ways. That suggested there were real grammatical rules. But every attempt to translate the text failed. Imagine hearing someone speak fluently, yet every word belongs to a language no human has ever heard before. That's what reading the Voynich Manuscript feels like. As decades passed, the mystery only grew. Scientists tested the ink. Historians dated the parchment. Computers searched for hidden patterns. Artificial intelligence joined the investigation. Yet the manuscript refused to reveal its meaning. But then, researchers uncovered a clue hidden not in the words, but in the age of the pages themselves. That discovery ruled out one of the biggest theories about the book and made the mystery even deeper. For centuries, people argued about one simple question: how old is this book? Without knowing its age, almost every theory was just speculation. Some believed it came from the Renaissance. Others insisted it was much newer, a clever forgery created to fool wealthy collectors. Then, in the early 21st century, scientists turned to one of history's most reliable dating methods, radiocarbon dating. Instead of studying the handwriting, they examined the parchment itself, the animal skin used to make the pages. The results surprised almost everyone. The parchment dated to the early 1400s. Suddenly, one of the biggest theories collapsed. If the parchment was genuinely medieval, then the manuscript was unlikely to be a modern fake created centuries later. But the discovery raised a new question. If someone had gone through the enormous effort of inventing an entire writing system, drawing hundreds of detailed illustrations, and filling page after page with consistent text, why? What could possibly justify years of work on a book that no one else could read? Once the manuscript's age became clearer, historians searched for its creator. Names began to emerge. One theory pointed to Roger Bacon, the English philosopher and scholar known for his interest in science and experimentation. It sounded exciting. A brilliant medieval thinker creating a book filled with secret knowledge. But there was a problem. Roger Bacon lived more than a century before the parchment was made. The timeline didn't fit. Other names followed. A physician, an alchemist, a monk, a court scholar. Each candidate seemed possible until one detail contradicted the evidence. It's as if the manuscript was carefully detached from its creator. No signature. No confirmed ownership during its earliest years. No clear record of where it was written. Almost every medieval manuscript leaves behind a trail. This one seemed to erase its own footsteps. One story stands out above all the others. According to later accounts, the manuscript may have reached the court of Emperor Rudolph II, a ruler fascinated by astronomy, alchemy, and strange inventions. He was known for collecting unusual objects from across Europe. Some believed he paid an enormous sum for the mysterious book, convinced it contained hidden wisdom. Imagine opening a manuscript that no one can read, and believing it might reveal forgotten science, secret medicine, or the key to understanding nature itself. Whether the story is entirely true remains uncertain, but it reveals something important. Even centuries ago, people saw the Voynich Manuscript as something extraordinary. Its mystery didn't begin in modern times. It was already mysterious to those who lived much closer to its creation. As computers became more powerful, researchers stopped asking, "What does it say?" Instead, they asked, "How does it behave?" Every real language has patterns. Some words appear often. Others are rare. Certain combinations repeat. Sentence lengths vary. When scientists analyzed the Voynich text, they found something remarkable. It behaved like a genuine language. Not perfectly, but far too consistently to look like meaningless nonsense. If someone had invented random symbols, maintaining such patterns across hundreds of pages would have required incredible discipline. It would be like composing an entire novel in an imaginary language while making sure every hidden rule remained consistent from beginning to end. Possible? Perhaps. Easy? Not at all. This discovery pushed the mystery even further. Maybe the text really did carry meaning. The challenge was that no one had found the key. In recent years, researchers introduced a new investigator. Not a historian. Not a linguist. An artificial intelligence. AI can compare millions of patterns far faster than any human. Some hoped it would finally unlock the manuscript. Algorithms searched for similarities with ancient languages. Others compared writing structures from across continents. A few studies suggested possible links to known linguistic families. But each proposal faced criticism. None produced a complete, reliable translation accepted by experts. The AI wasn't defeated because it lacked intelligence. It struggled because there was nothing certain to compare the manuscript against. Imagine trying to solve a jigsaw puzzle without knowing what the finished picture should look like. That's the challenge. The machine can search endlessly. But if the original language is unknown or entirely unique, it may never find a perfect match. Not everyone believes the manuscript hides profound secrets. Some researchers argue the opposite. They think the greatest trick is convincing people there is a message at all. Could the manuscript simply be an elaborate medieval hoax? The idea sounds simple. Create strange drawings. Invent a believable writing system. Sell the book to someone wealthy. But there's a problem. Producing more than 200 pages of internally consistent text by hand would have demanded enormous effort. Years of writing, careful planning, repeated patterns that imitate real language. Would someone invest that much time for a deception with no guarantee of success? The hoax theory answers some questions, but it creates others. More than 6 centuries have passed. Empires have risen and fallen. Wars have reshaped nations. Computers now solve problems once thought impossible. Yet this manuscript still sits quietly behind protective glass, offering no final answers. Every generation believes it may be the one to solve it. Every generation leaves with more questions than certainty. And perhaps that is the manuscript's greatest power. Not the possibility that it contains hidden knowledge, but the way it reminds us how much of history remains beyond our understanding. Just when it seemed every explanation had been explored, researchers noticed something unexpected. Some of the drawings appeared to resemble real medieval knowledge, but only in fragments. Could the manuscript be a coded medical guide? A symbolic encyclopedia? Or something entirely different? What if the greatest mystery in history isn't really a mystery? What if the Voynich Manuscript has been misunderstood from the very beginning? For more than a century, researchers have searched for a hidden code, a secret language, an impossible cipher. But perhaps they've been asking the wrong question. Maybe the manuscript wasn't designed to hide information. Maybe it was designed to teach it. Look closely at the pages. You'll notice something unusual. Many drawings resemble roots, leaves, flowers, jars, baths, and the human body. Throughout medieval Europe, medicine looked very different from today. Doctors believed health depended on balancing the body's natural forces. Herbal remedies were among the most valuable forms of knowledge. A single rare plant could be worth a fortune. Recipes were copied by hand, passed between physicians, and often kept secret. Some historians believe the Voynich Manuscript may be a medical guide. Perhaps the strange plants aren't imaginary, but carefully simplified illustrations. Perhaps the women bathing represent treatments, healing rituals, or symbolic diagrams of the human body. It sounds convincing, until one problem appears. Many of the plants simply don't exist. Not in Europe, not in Asia, not anywhere scientists have confidently identified. So either the artist had an extraordinary imagination, or the drawings represent ideas rather than real plants. The mystery deepens. During the Middle Ages, alchemy fascinated Europe. People searched for impossible dreams, turning ordinary metals into gold, creating medicines that could cure every disease, even discovering the secret to eternal life. To outsiders, alchemy looked like magic, but much of it eventually evolved into early chemistry. Alchemists rarely wrote plainly. Instead, they filled their books with symbols, metaphors, hidden meanings. A rose might represent one substance, a dragon another. A circle could stand for the sun, or gold, or perfection. Only trained readers understood the code. Could the Voynich Manuscript be one of those hidden manuals? Some pages seem to support the idea. Circular diagrams, stars, complex symbols, mysterious containers. But once again, nothing fits perfectly. The illustrations resemble alchemy, yet they also differ from every known alchemical manuscript. Close enough to tempt researchers, different enough to stop them. Imagine discovering a recording of someone speaking a language that nobody on Earth speaks anymore. How would you translate it? You couldn't ask the speakers. There would be no dictionary, no grammar, no surviving books, only sound. That's exactly the problem facing researchers. Some believe the manuscript records a completely forgotten language, perhaps spoken by a small community, perhaps created for one royal court, perhaps lost forever through war, disease, or time. History has already witnessed hundreds of languages disappear forever. Entire cultures vanished, leaving almost no trace. Could the Voynich Manuscript be the final surviving voice of one forgotten civilization? It's possible, but proving it may be impossible. Now comes the most controversial idea. What if every researcher, every computer, every code breaker has been chasing an illusion? Some skeptics argue the manuscript contains no message whatsoever. Instead, its creator simply invented words that look meaningful. Think about how clouds sometimes resemble faces, or random sounds seem like whispered voices. The human brain naturally searches for patterns. Maybe that's exactly what's happening here. But then another question appears. Why would someone spend years creating over 200 pages of fake writing? Even today, writing hundreds of pages by hand would require extraordinary dedication. For what reward? No one knows. Ironically, the hoax theory is just as difficult to prove as the secret code theory. One detail often escapes attention. Although the words remain unreadable, the writing itself is remarkably neat. There are very few corrections, almost no scratched-out mistakes, no obvious signs of hesitation. Think about writing a long book. Eventually, everyone makes errors, stops, changes a sentence, starts again. Yet the Voynich Manuscript flows almost effortlessly. It's as if the author knew exactly what every symbol meant. That suggests something remarkable. Whether the language is real, invented, or encoded, the writer wasn't improvising. They were following rules that still remain hidden. Perhaps the Voynich Manuscript isn't famous because nobody can read it. Perhaps it's famous because it challenges something much deeper. We often believe that with enough technology, enough science, enough intelligence, every mystery can eventually be solved. The Voynich Manuscript quietly disagrees. It reminds us that history still holds secrets, that knowledge can disappear, that not every question comes with an answer. And maybe that's exactly why millions of people continue searching. Not because they expect certainty, but because the search itself is irresistible. For more than 600 years, the manuscript has survived fires, wars, empires, collectors, scientists, and now artificial intelligence. But what if the greatest clue has never been hidden inside the text at all? What if the real answer lies in who wanted this book to exist, and why? In the final chapter, we'll trace the manuscript's remarkable journey across Europe, examine why it has never disappeared despite its mystery, and ask one final question. Will humanity ever truly read the Voynich Manuscript? Or was it always meant to remain unread? History has a strange habit. Most ordinary books disappear. They burn in wars. They decay in damp libraries. They are forgotten on dusty shelves. Some survive for a century. Very few survive for 6. Yet somehow, the Voynich Manuscript escaped them all. It passed quietly from one owner to another, from scholars to collectors to libraries. Empires collapsed, borders changed, languages evolved, entire civilizations vanished. But this silent book remained, almost as if history itself refused to let it disappear. And perhaps that survival is just as mysterious as the writing inside. Over the last 100 years, some of the smartest people on Earth have studied this manuscript. Historians, linguists, cryptographers, mathematicians, botanists, computer scientists, even experts who helped break military codes during wartime. Each arrived with confidence. Each believed they might finally solve the puzzle. Weeks became months. Months became years. Every new theory seemed convincing, until another expert found a flaw. One researcher claimed the text represented a forgotten language. Another argued it was an elaborate cipher. Another insisted it was meaningless. The debate never truly ended, because every answer solved one mystery, while creating 2 more. When artificial intelligence entered the investigation, many believed the mystery's final days had arrived. After all, AI can recognize patterns humans often miss. It can compare millions of combinations in seconds. It doesn't get tired. It doesn't become frustrated. If any tool could unlock the manuscript, surely this was it. The computers analyzed every page, every repeated symbol, every sentence length, every illustration, and they discovered something fascinating. The manuscript behaves with remarkable internal consistency. Its symbols repeat in structured ways. Certain patterns appear exactly where a real language might use grammar or common words. This strengthened one idea. The text probably wasn't random scribbling. But even after finding those patterns, the meaning remained hidden. It's like discovering the rhythm of a song without hearing the melody. The structure is there. The message is not. Imagine walking into a museum, finding a strange musical instrument, and asking, what song does it play? But what if it was never meant to play music? Perhaps our greatest mistake has been assuming the Voynich Manuscript is trying to tell us a story. Maybe it wasn't written to be read in the way modern books are. Perhaps it was meant for meditation, for symbolism, for teaching, for private rituals, or for a tiny circle of people who already understood its meaning. If that's true, then searching for a simple translation may never succeed. Because some books don't communicate through words alone. They communicate through ideas. Have you noticed something? Whenever a mystery remains unsolved, people rarely lose interest. Instead, the mystery grows stronger. The unknown invites imagination. One person sees hidden science. Another sees secret history. Someone else sees a forgotten civilization. The human brain dislikes unfinished stories. We naturally search for endings, for certainty, for explanations. The Voynich Manuscript offers none. And perhaps that is exactly why we keep returning to it. It becomes a mirror, reflecting our curiosity back at us. Will someone eventually read every page? The honest answer is, nobody knows. Perhaps tomorrow, a forgotten document will be discovered in an old monastery. Perhaps another manuscript written in the same script still waits unnoticed in a private collection. Perhaps future technology will uncover relationships invisible today. Or perhaps the final key disappeared hundreds of years ago, burned in a fire, lost in a flood, forgotten with the last person who understood it. Some mysteries end. Others become part of history itself. When people first hear about the Voynich Manuscript, they usually ask, what does it say? But after spending time with its story, a different question begins to emerge. Why do we need every mystery to have an answer? History is filled with incomplete puzzles, missing pages, forgotten voices, unknown creators. The Voynich Manuscript reminds us that knowledge is fragile. Entire libraries have vanished. Languages have disappeared. Ideas have been lost forever. Perhaps this mysterious book is not a failure of science. Perhaps it is proof that humanity's story is still unfinished. There are still corners of history, waiting patiently for someone to ask the right question. So, the next time someone tells you, we already know everything important about history, remember the silent book, filled with words no one can read, drawings no one fully understands, and a mystery that has survived for more than 6 centuries. Maybe the greatest discoveries are not the answers we find, but the questions that refuse to disappear. Pause, because somewhere, on an old page, written by an unknown hand, a secret may still be waiting. If you enjoy mysteries where history, science, and psychology collide, you're in the right place. Subscribe to Truly Woke, because every week we'll uncover another story that challenges what we think we know. And until the next mystery, stay curious.